God bless. Have a seat. Thanks for coming this morning. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Nick Smith. I'm the pastor here. If you're a guest, I want to welcome all those watching online with us, Facebook. Thanks for joining us this morning. We have a great service today. We got Baptism Sunday. Love Baptism Sunday. It's my favorite Sunday that we do. And so that's going to be awesome. We're going to be doing that here in a few moments. But before we get there, I want to talk to you about my leave home moment. Okay, so I don't know where everybody's at, but here's what I know about every single person in here. Everyone has a leave home moment. I mean, unless you're 17 or 18, you have a moment where you left home. And for some of you, it's you were 18 and you graduated high school and you just left and you went and just got your own apartment and you're like, forget it, mom and dad, I'm out of here. For some of you, you went to college. For some of you, you lived at home for a little bit while longer. Maybe you got married or you just kind of waited until you were 20 or 25 or hopefully not 30, but 30, you know what I mean? You just kind of empty nest a little bit, Don't laugh, it may be you. But anyway, every single one of us, if you're an adult and you've got your own place, you had a leave home moment. You had a moment where you left home, and I remember mine. I was 18 years old. I was getting ready to go to college. Actually, I wasn't getting ready. I was at college that weekend, drove over the big hill. There's a big hill there, and loaded all my stuff up that first weekend. Unloaded it in my dorm room. It was awesome. Had a great time. And then we had class. That was awesome. Loved class. Not really. But anyway, no, I had that first week of class, though. And then my first official weekend away from my parents. Do you remember your first weekend away from your parents? I mean, it was like all opportunities are on the table all of a sudden. Because for the first time in my life, I remember thinking this. It was Friday. And I was looking forward to the weekend because as an 18-year-old guy in college, I was thinking, I can do anything that I want. I mean, literally, all possibilities, both good and bad, are on the table this weekend. And for the first time, I don't have to ask the question, will mom or dad find out? And that was a wonderful thing. I never had to ask the question, you know what? Okay, hey, what's going to happen if they find out? Hey, do I got to check in? Do I have a curfew? I had none of that stuff. And it was the first weekend I get to go, you know what? What am I going to do? And it was also the first weekend that I remember thinking to myself, you know what? Do I really believe? Do I really believe in this thing called God? Because I don't know what your story is, but I can tell you mine really quickly. I was the very typical raised in a church kind of a guy. My mom was the choir director, and so not only did we go on Sundays, we went on Mondays and Wednesdays and Thursdays, and pretty much if the doors were open, I was in church. And whether I wanted to go or I didn't want to go, I was in church. And whether I thought it was a good idea or a bad idea, I was in church. And whether I got in trouble or not, I was in church. I was in church all the time, every moment. And that weekend, I had to make a decision. Will my faith be my own? Will I go? Because my mom wasn't going to call me and ask me. Well, she might have actually. I'm not sure about that. But anyway, I could have lied. I could do whatever I wanted. No one's going to check up on me. No one's going to be able to find out. It was that weekend that I made the decision of, you know what? I believe that it went from renting my parents' faith to becoming my own. It went from a good idea in something that I was forced to do and something I should do and I better do and okay, I hope they don't find out or whatever, to you know what? Doesn't really matter if mom and dad find out. Doesn't really matter if my girlfriend finds out. I really believe. And every single one of you, for the most part, in a room like this, you've had a decision like that to make. You've had a decision like that to make. You know what? Hey, do I really believe what I say I believe? In fact, we're in the middle of this series called This Is What We Do. Because what we've said this whole time is this, that it's easier to find out what somebody believes not by what they say, but by what they do. That a lot of people say a lot of things. A lot of people say, yeah, I believe in this, and I believe in God, and I believe in, this, all things. A lot, I believe in fairness. I believe in values. I believe in not lying. But they do something very different. And so we're doing this whole series not to tell you what we believe, to tell you what we do, because at the core, I believe, and I think you kind of know this to be true, that what you believe is really revealed by what you do, not what you say. And that weekend, like you've had weekends like that, I had to make a decision. Not whether I was a Christian or not, because if you'd asked me, I'd have said yes. But do I really believe what I say? Am I going to be a renter of my faith? Am I going to continue to rent my mom and dad's faith, or am I going to own it myself. Because see, we're in the middle of this series, and what we decided is we're going to walk through all 5 core values of the church. See, as a church, we have 5 core values that were hanging on the wall as you walked in. You may or may not notice them. But when we walked through them, and last week what we said was our 5th core value is we can't plan a move of God, but we will prepare for one. Meaning I can't control God's Spirit. I can't control what God's going to do in your heart and my heart and whatever. We can't control that. But we can do everything we can do humanly possible to prepare for it. We gave you some dice last week and the whole deal. And we said, listen, don't chance it. Don't prepare. Whatever it is that you want God to do in your life, make sure that you're prepared. And we talked about that. And this week's core value is very, very simple. It's we will be owners, not renters. Because far too long in the church, I believe there are renters in the church. Both as you rent the church, but also as you rent your faith. And today, I want to start with a quote. I want to start from a quote, and we're not going to put it up yet, but from a guy, I got to set it up a little bit, from a guy named Sam Harris. If you don't know who Sam Harris is, that's probably a good thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Sam Harris is one of the 4 horsemen. He's one of the new atheist religion kind of deal. He is wildly popular. He's written several books. And in fact, he's a guy that I listen to. I listen to his podcast all the time. Now, there's a reason I listen to his podcast. It's not because I believe what he believes, and we're going to get to why I listen to him a little bit later, but you need to understand, I listen to him all the time because he is so fascinating. He is incredibly intelligent. I disagree with him, but man, it's just refreshing to kind of see a different perspective. But this guy hates religion, hates God, can't stand it, and does this podcast that you can download, and I don't know about you, but I love listening to podcasts. And so I was listening to this guy about a year ago, just kind of walking through it. And he's on one of his rants against religion, and he makes this statement that we're going to put up on the wall in a few seconds here. And he makes this statement, I got to tell you right now, it just rocked me. I mean, I listen to podcasts at 3 speed. Okay, you think I talk fast? Listen to something at 3 speed? That's fast, okay? Maybe that's why I talk so fast. I don't know. That's a different sermon. But, I love it. And I paused it. I rewound. I listened probably about 15 times. I bookmarked it. It's incredible. And here's what he said. This is so fascinating to me. He says this: religious moderation is the product of secular knowledge and scriptural ignorance. Religious moderation. I want to break this down for you because this is so fascinating to me. Because again, this is not a pastor. This is not a Christian writer. This is an atheist who is peeking into the local church. And he sees what I think a lot of people see, but maybe say it or maybe don't say it, maybe are afraid to say it or whatever. But he says, listen, religious moderation. The moderation, they're not fanatics, but they're kind of like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. They're kind of normal. They're kind of vanilla. Yeah, they say they believe with their words, but they may not own it, per se. He said religious moderation is the product. I mean, you get that way. Not because you opened up your Bible and studied the Bible and read the Bible and had discussions with your pastor or friends or whatever. You get that way because it's a product of secular knowledge, which is a fancy way of saying it's just life. Like secular, that's a fancy way. It's not bad or good. It's amoral. It's secular is science. Science is secular. It's not good or bad. I love science. Science is amazing, actually. I think it's incredibly helpful. Medicine's secular. It's not good or bad. In fact, all people say it's good. Psychiatry, psychology, all of the normal stuff, basically secular is anything that does not have a religious bent towards it. He says, you want to know how you get religious moderation? It's the product of being in the world and scriptural ignorance and not knowing what many people would state that they believe. That they would say it with their lips, but they really don't own it. They really don't know why. Oh, they say it. They may not live it out, which is, again, maybe one of the reasons why you walked away from church is because you walked in and you're like, hey, there's a bunch of hypocrites. Hey, I can't go here. Why? Because they're a bunch of hypocrites. Yeah, they say one thing, but they don't live it out at all. And why I find this so fascinating is because this is not coming, again, from a pastor. This would make sense, and this would almost feel manipulative, right? If a pastor stood up at a large church and said, hey, we got a whole bunch of just kind of in-the-middle moderates, and you guys aren't taking your faith seriously, and you know why? It's because, you're too worldly. That would make sense. And you could blow it off if you were sitting here today. If a pastor said it, he'd be like, yeah, he's just trying to manipulate me. What's so fascinating to me is this guy's an atheist, and in fact, he'd probably just be mortified if he found out a pastor's using his statement to motivate his church, because he has no agenda. His goal isn't to make you be more passionate about your God. His goal, he was just peeking into the world of religion. He came to the conclusion, you know what I see? I see the church. I see religion as a whole. I see people who say they follow God. They are moderate. And he doesn't mean that in a good way. He means it as they say one thing and they do something different, or they've changed their views, or they're kind of wishy-washy, or they don't even know what they believe. He says they are moderate, and it has zero to do with them coming to the conclusion from the Bible. It has everything to do with they know way more about Game of Thrones than they do about the book of James. And the pushback that I get with this, because I believe this is central to one of the main problems in America, one of the main problems that we struggle with, is that it's so incredibly true that the churches are filled with people that rent their faith instead of own it. Now, when I say that to people one-on-one, I always get pushback because I want to challenge people. Again, I've said it before. Ephesians talks about this. My job as a pastor is to equip the saints for the work of ministry. My job is to equip you, to push you, to motivate you, to inspire you, to challenge you, and to equip you. Why? So you can go work. I say that all the time, okay? So if you're here today and you're like, I just want to sit back and enjoy it, and you're a guest, awesome, but at some time we're going to push you to kind of step up and move in because that's really my job to do that. If you're like, man, Nick's always talking about doing something, that's my job, okay? So when I push people one-on-one, I say, listen, hey, you kind of got one foot in, one foot out. They're like, Nick, come on. You just don't understand. And they'll say weird things like, you know what, Nick, I just don't have a good memory. Because I'll ask them, like, hey, what's your favorite verse? Well, have you memorized it? Do you memorize Scripture? Do you kind of do that? Do you own your faith? And they'll look at me and they'll say that, I don't have a really good memory. To which I think is complete garbage. And I can prove it to you in about 13 seconds I'm going to. Because here's what I know about you. You have a favorite song, right? And for most of you, you know every word. Right? And it's probably not biblical either, okay? So let's just be honest. All right? Let's just be real, okay? I mean, seriously, about 20 years ago, there was a song. It's one of my favorite songs. It's by a famous rap artist, okay? And I can tell you every single word. I won't because I'd be sinning if I said half of them, but I won't tell you those. But it starts off like this. I like big. Don't say it. This is church, a bunch of sinners. Okay, there's a reason I didn't say it. But listen, hang with me, You knew it. In fact, it's that and, I cannot lie. You other brothers, I'm not going to go there anyway, but come on. You know it. You know the words. Here's the way. Memorized it. And you would say, I don't got a good memory. You don't understand, Nick. I read the Bible. I kind of read it maybe. I got one foot in it. I'm just not really good at memorization, but you know your favorite songs. And you can recite them, and maybe not every word, but listen, you weren't even trying to memorize those songs for the most part, probably. It's you just spent enough time with it. You just had it on repeat in your record or your tape or your CD or whatever generation you're from, your MP3, your computer, your iPod, whatever that is. You had it on repeat enough. And you just saturated yourself with it to the point that you could just regurgitate it. To where when a pastor starts a song from 20 years ago, you're like, butts. I'm so wrong. Because we own what we value. Let me ask you a question really quickly. What's on repeat in your world right now? What's on repeat right now in your world? Okay, is it God? Do you have God on repeat that, maybe you don't, maybe you've never sat down and thought, I'm going to memorize this, but you've got God on repeat every single day at the same time that you're reading His Word, you're walking through, you're praying with Him, you're walking through. Why? So you can own it. So that one day you surprise yourself and you're like, yeah, I know that's in James and that's in this, and I was reading my Bible and this happened. Because what I find is many people, this quote is so true, many of us, we don't own our faith. What we have on repeat is we know way more about Game of Thrones than we do about the book of James. We know way more about Kentucky basketball. There's a bunch of guys that are like, listen, I'm not really good with memory. But you can tell me the starting quarterback of the UK football team from 1994. You can tell me the starting lineup of the Kentucky basketball team from the past 5 years. You can tell me where Anthony Davis plays. You can tell me what his stats are. You can tell me your favorite football team. Listen, you know it. And there's certain things, every single one of us in here today, whether you believe in God or not, listen, you have areas of your life that you own. My concern as a pastor is that us as a church, that we make sure that as we walk with God, as we try to pursue God as much as we possibly can, that we own what's important. That as we look back on our life, we don't sit back and go, yeah, I can tell you Sir Mix-a-Lot's #1 hit, but I can't tell you my favorite verse. That should bug us. Not because I'm saying you've got to believe or you don't. No, that's not my concern. If you're here today and you're like, Nick, I don't know if I believe. Cool, that's awesome. You can just listen and kind of sit back. No. I'm talking to all the people that would say with their mouth, I'm a Christian. I believe in God. I love God. I worship God. And yet their world is very disconnected. And what they've got on repeat is not what God has, but all of the secular knowledge that is out there. So today, here's what I want to do. I want to walk through what I think are 3 steps. 3 things that you can do that will help you own your faith if you want to. Because I can't force you. I can't do anything. All I can do is kind of help you do that. But before we get there, I want to read you a few statements because one of the things is I run into people too, and they would say, Nick, I don't rent my faith. I own it. But so I wrote down some statements of people, things people say, where they rent, they're indicators, they're things. And so if you find yourself saying these things, maybe you're a renter. Number 1 is this: I grew up believing. What that tells me is you don't really study it. You just, you don't really know it for yourself. I just grew up. That's the way I grew up. I've never really spent a lot of time thinking about it. I've never spent a lot of time. I mean, I can tell you why the Chicago Bears offense is wrong, and I've studied that and I've watched that. But you know what I mean? I don't know. I just grew up believing that about God. I heard someone else say, blah, blah, blah. I read a book that said, I don't know where it says this, but I had a great conversation with somebody this past week in a restaurant, and we were talking about God or whatever, and I was inviting them to church and that whole deal. And they made this statement. They said, well, I don't know where it says but. And my first thought was, well, I know why you don't know where it says that, because it doesn't say that. But I didn't say that to her. I was like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, that's wrong. Anyway, but they just really renting their faith. I don't know where it says it, but I'm pretty sure. I'm not confident, but somebody told me that one time. I'm spiritual. Man, that's a big buzz thing nowadays, isn't it? I'm not going to own any faith, but I'm spiritual. I'm just going to be present. I'm spiritual. I don't really quite know what even that means. But man, does it sound good? Man, does it sound inclusive? I'm just going to rent different parts of other religions and just, spiritual. Last one is my pastor told me. And even that, I just want to say, man, I really believe what I say. So I study it. I spend a lot of time working on it. I'm just, it's important to me. But at the same time, my hope is that you would never walk around and going, hey, Nick told me. Who cares what Nick told you? Own it. Whatever you believe. We can disagree. Matter of fact, I have way more respect for people that would sit back and go, Nick, I completely disagree with you, and here's why, than I do people that sit back and go, yeah, I agree with you. Why? I don't know, I just do. Like, just disagree with me. That's cool. But own your faith. Own what you believe. Because when you rent, you know this, right? When you rent something, you use it for as long as it fits what you need, and then you move on. When you rent a car, you rent it for a period of time. And then when you're done with it, just move on, right? And come on, let's be honest. When you rent a car, you don't treat it like your car, do you? You do? Okay, well, I don't, so don't ever loan me your car. Because, listen, I will drive that thing fast. And I don't care when it needs an oil change. And I don't care what that sound is. And I don't care anything about it. Why? Because I'm using that. And again, this is the problem. People that rent their faith, they view the church, they view God, they view other people as situational and stipulational. I will come to your church as long as your needs, your things fit my needs, and as long as everything fits me, and as soon as I'm done with what you can do for me, I'm renting you. I'm not going to say that, but I'm gone. I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm going to hop out of church. I'm going to go to church while I'm in crisis with God, and while I need God, and while I need faith because I'm sick, or somebody else is sick, or we got financial troubles, or whatever that is. But the moment that I'm good, the moment I'm not, listen, I'm going to go home, I'm going to sleep in, I'm going to go out the night before, I'm going to do whatever. Why? Because I'm renting the church. I'm renting God. And there is great danger in that. In fact, Revelation 3 says this. God is speaking to the church. This is an actual church. This isn't Israelites. This is an actual New Testament church. This would be to us kind of deal. He says this. God says this. So because you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I am about to spit you out of my mouth. This is the danger. This is what keeps me up at night. This is what my prayer is for you. It is that God himself, this isn't like Paul wrote it, this is like God speaking through this author, and he's speaking to the church. He says, listen, yeah, there are people in the church, not outside. Of course there are people outside, but he says, listen, there are people in the church. There's a whole church, actually, that he's writing this to. He says, yeah, you make me sick. Oh, yeah, you show up. Oh, yeah, you might give some money. You might serve. You're renters. You're not hot or cold. You make me sick to my stomach. And when I think about you, I just want to throw up. I just want to get you away from me. I don't want to even be near you. And that is the danger. That is the tension. That is the things, again, that keep me up at night for myself and for you. To ensure that we don't create a church, to ensure that you, as you walk with God, you're not renting God, but you're owning it. That you know what you believe, you know why you believe it, and you can confidently say it to other people. So, 3 things you can do. Number 1 is this. Question everything. And I mean everything. Like, question everything. Because here's what I believe happens for many, and maybe this is your story, and if you're a guest here, maybe this is your story. Maybe you got drugged here because there's a baptism and you were being nice and you don't really believe in church, but you're showing up because, they do, and you're trying to be nice and the whole deal. It's a big deal for the family. But I'll tell you, almost all of us, we learned about God when we learned about Santa Claus, right? I mean, it's that whole, when we were 5, I learned about Santa Claus and coming down the chimney and the whole deal, and we learned about God at the same time. And the problem is this, and Sam Harris talks about this in one of his books. The problem is we grow out of one very quickly. And the struggle is for some of you, maybe for many of you, you had the same questions about God as you did Santa Claus. And there wasn't somebody there to answer your questions. That they all were fairy tales, they all were myths, they all were great stories to control your behavior. Be good for goodness sake. He's watching you. That's terrifying, isn't it? Right? And you just kind of grew out of them. And maybe you grew up in a church that said, don't question it. Just believe. Just have faith. Okay? You grew up in Sunday school classes, and they said things like the Bible is the perfect inerrant word of God. That Jesus rose from the dead after 3 days. I mean, that's really what we're celebrating. That's really why we come together. And you heard these statements. You heard these things about a virgin birth. And again, they all seem like fairy tales. They all seem like stories right along the deal with Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy and the whole deal. And you just kind of grew out of them. Because you didn't get good answers for Santa. And you either didn't ask the questions, or maybe you did ask the questions about God, and you just got answers from a pastor or mother or father or well-meaning friend who just said, you just need to believe. And I just tell you, that's one of the silliest responses you can have. I would say this, you want your faith to be your own? Question every single thing that you have. It's why I listen to Sam Harris. Not because I believe him. No, I think he's wildly wrong, and even he's got some stuff where he says he owns it. He's like, yeah, I'm not sure what to do with that. But I want to know what he's thinking. I want to know it, and I want to know if there's something I'm missing, not because I'm worried he's going to mess up my faith, but because I really believe he's going to make my faith stronger. That there is nothing that I hold, there is no value, there is no true statement that I hold that I'm worried about, like, oh no, secular world's going to mess it up. In fact, let me say this. If that's your concern, if your faith is so fragile that it cannot withstand questioning, you should just go ahead and throw that faith away anyway, because it's not worth anything. Because you will have a moment and you will have a hard time where something's going to mess with you. Somebody's going to die. Somebody's going to get sick. Something bad's going to happen. You're going to lose a job or whatever. And then all these cute little statements you learn in Sunday school that God's good and God loves you and just pray, they're not going to fix your problem. And you'll walk away anyway. And again, maybe that's some of your statements. Now, that's your story. You grew up in Sunday school with nice little statements that as you grew up, you realized, you know what? I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if I believe that or not. I don't know if I can walk that. I love science. I love studying all that stuff. And you know what? I've never once read a science book or read whatever. I think science and faith go hand in hand, which is why I can listen to somebody like that and go, yeah, it's great. No, he's right on that. He's right on that. And it doesn't mess with my belief in an eternal, created God. In fact, the more you study science, I just tell you right now, I believe the more you see and understand that there is a creator of the world. Romans 1 talks about that, where Paul writes this, and he says, listen, you can look at the heavens and the earth and come to the conclusion that there is a God. The creator of the human genome did the same thing. Scientists, atheists sought out to disprove the whole kind of thing, figure out how the human genome is mapped, the DNA, whole deal. He figured that out. He found it, and guess what happened? He became a Christian. Because they're not contradictory, because they're not separate, because they actually go hand in hand. But again, I don't know about you, but I grew up in a world sometimes where it was just kind of put your head down like an ostrich and believe. And don't question it, don't do that. That is not how we're called to live our lives. Wherever you're at, I would encourage you, question everything. Is the Bible real? Was there really a Jesus? And if there was really a Jesus, did he really come back from the dead? Or is that they're just nice stories that they put together? And they made that whole raising from the dead thing. I believe that there's evidence upon evidence upon evidence for all that stuff. But don't take my word for it. Don't walk around and go, Nick said. Own it. Own yours, because you will have a day where you need to answer those questions, which leads to the second point, is this. Study the answers. Yeah, when I write something like this, again, I'll push people a little bit. I'm like, hey, how much do you study the Bible? And again, people will sit back in their modern aspect, and like, Nick, study the Bible, that seems like a little bit weird. I read, I'll pray a little bit, but you want me to study? I don't study. Much like the memorization, I don't memorize things. No, absolutely, you study things all the time. Again, going back to guys study statistics all the time. I can tell you right now, Notre Dame starting lineup. Notre Dame football is the greatest thing in the world. We will be talking about it a lot in the fall. We got it 4 weeks away. So anyway, but I study that. Now, I don't sit down. I don't look at Lisa and go, hey, sweetie, dinner's over. I'm going to go study some Notre Dame stuff, so I'll see you later. I got to go open my books up and study that. I don't do that. No. I go to the website, clicking on videos. I'm watching podcasts. And I don't care what you call it, but I'm studying it. Because I can regurgitate the quarterbacks of the last 25 years of Notre Dame. I can tell you the coaches. I can tell you their salaries. Love Notre Dame football. Guys study all the time. It's just, what do you got on repeat? What are you putting on? Ladies and gentlemen, you study other people all the time, right? Come on. You don't call it studying. No. You call it flipping through Facebook, right? What are they doing? Oh, that's good. What are they doing? Oh, she should not be wearing that. Oh, what are they doing? You just, right? Come on, don't do that. All right, you've thought that before, okay? But many of you in here, you've spent 30 minutes on Facebook. And you wouldn't call it studying. It's exactly what you're doing. You're studying human nature. You're studying what people are doing. You watch the news. You're studying current events. Because I don't want to get into semantics. I don't care what you call it. But what I know is this. There are far too many people who say one thing with their mouth. And they're like, yeah, I'm a Christian. Yeah, I do this. But their actions don't line up. They're renting their faith. And I'm telling you, if you want to own your faith, you've got to, at some point in time, study the answers. You've got to find some people who are a little bit smarter than you, a little bit further and faster, and you go, hey, how do you know this? Help me. Is there some resource? Is there a book? Are there some websites? Is there some videos? Like, what do I do? I'm studying this, and I don't want to take your word for it. That's great. Thanks for the help, but I want to know it for myself. You've got to study it. And you don't have to call it that. Call it research. Call it video time. I don't care what you call it. Find some podcast. Study. Because every single one of you studies. The issue is not whether you study, whether you memorize, whether you're good with that. That is irrelevant. The issue is, what do you have on repeat in your world? And for far too long, the people in the church, myself included at certain seasons of my life, we've made excuses about who we are all the while living in the world, becoming religiously moderate and expecting extravagant, amazing results. And it just doesn't work like that. One of the scriptures that talks about this says this, 2 Corinthians 13:5, examine yourselves to see whether you are in the faith. It See, it's not about a prayer you make one day and hopefully you're good and it's going to be fine and just I'm going to pray my prayer. I came to the altar, I did the whole deal, and now I'm fine. No. Paul says, listen, he's writing to a church and says, listen, examine yourselves, see your faith, test yourselves. Do you not realize that Christ is in you unless, of course, you fail the test? This is why I do what I do. Because I believe that churches are filled with people that are going to fail. Because you know what a test does? A test just reveals what you already are. If I would go out and do a fitness test right now, you know what that's not going to do? I'm not going to get on the fitness test and go, wow, I'm stronger. Wow, I'm faster. Wow, I'm in better shape now. No, actually, after a fitness test, I'm going to feel like dying. I'm going to be like, oh, it's going to be terrible. No. All a fitness test does is say, Nick, you're either fit or you're not. It just reveals where I'm at. You know what an intellectual test in college, I failed way too many tests in those. And you know what they revealed? I didn't know what I was talking about. The test didn't make me smarter. The test didn't make me any dumber. Well, maybe some of them did. But anyway, all the test did, it just revealed who I really, really was. Was I really a math major? Was I really somebody who understood English? Was I really, or was I pretending to be something that I'm not? I know that there are moments, see, this is so, you can pretend all you want. The test reveal who you are. And that's the danger of this. I'll never forget the moment in college. I was a computer science major, and we had this big project. The project was your whole grade for the most part. You had all semester. And so we studied other things, but they said at the end of it was a networking class, and there was about 5 or 6 of us on this team. And at the end of it, your grade for that was pretty much your grade. And I was lazy and not the best student. I've already covered that a couple times. But I don't mind talking in front of people, obviously. So I sat down with 4 other guys in our team. I said, here's the deal, guys. None of you want to talk, right? None of you want to do the presentation. It was a 35-minute presentation. They're like, They were all typical, geeky, glasses, whole deal. Not that there's anything wrong with glasses. But, they're just your stereotypical computer science guys. And I said, I'll make the deal. I'll do the whole presentation. You guys do all the work. And they were more than welcome to do that. So you know what? Test day came up, presentation day came up. I stood up. I did an amazing presentation, if I do say so myself. It was great. People were engaged. I was funny. It was relevant. It was helpful. And we got done to the Q&A part that I had no clue about because they would actually ask questions that I couldn't read from a script. And so I very gracefully said, hey, you know what? I've talked so much. I'm going to let some of my partners deal with the Q&A. So I walked off to the side. We got done, and they asked questions, and they all did a great job reacting to the questions. We got done. I'm feeling like, man, nailed it. Miss Miller walks around. Great job, guys. A. I'm thinking, yes. She looks at me. She goes, you don't have a clue what you're talking about, do you? I'm like, what was my grade again? She's like, an A. I went, no, I don't have a clue. And she looks at me and she goes, yeah, that was pretty obvious to anybody who knows the topic. You shouldn't be in computer science. You should be in sales or something, but this is the wrong field for you. She changed my whole trajectory, actually. It was crazy. But what it showed me was this. I could fake out everybody else. But somebody that knew the real content, somebody that knew the real stuff, very quickly could see a fake. And here's what I'm saying to you right now. You can fake out your family. You can fake out your friends. You can walk around and you can pray and you can go to church and you can do whatever, but I want you to know, I care about you enough to tell you the whole truth. There will be a test at the end of your life. And the test is going to be one question and one question only. Who's Jesus in your world? That's it. It's not going to be a question about, hey, do you know St. Peter's mother-in-law and how many miracles did Jesus do and what's James chapter 5 say? None of that. Who's Jesus in your life? Do you have a personal relationship with Jesus? That's it. Doesn't matter about your works. Doesn't matter. That is the one question. But here's the deal. You can't fake that. Does your world revolve around Jesus? Do you get up thinking about, hey, what does Jesus want me to do? Where am I convicted? Where am I motivated? Where is Jesus in this whole thing? Because that's it. Paul writes this. He's like, if you're a real Christian, listen, there's some people that are renting, there's some people that are owning. You want to know the difference? You want to know how to figure it out? Examine yourself. Take some time. It's not a prayer. It's not an altar call moment. Those are great for starting a relationship with Jesus. That's not what saves you. What saves you is your heart towards God. And you transition and going, God, I'm a bad owner of my own life. I'm going to give you my life. I'm no longer going to rent. Goes on. Last one is this. Base your life on it. It's pretty simple. Again, that's why some of you left the church. That's why some of you maybe don't go to church. It's because it's full of hypocrites. It's full of people that don't do what they say. It's full of people that know a lot but pretend one way and go live the rest. Let me just say that bugs me too. That drives me nuts too. And if I can be completely honest, because our church's core values are relevant, simple, real, let me just say this too. There are so many areas where I'm a hypocrite. I just got to own that. Because none of us are perfect. This isn't about pretending to be perfect. This isn't about pretending to be better and piling up good works. But it is about owning your faith and saying, listen, I'm going to struggle with this area of my life, but you know what? Jesus has called me to do it, so I'm going to do it. I'm going to struggle in this walk. I'm going to struggle with this addiction that I have fallen 57 times, but you know what? I'm going to get up again for the 58th time, and I'm going to do it. It's about owning the fact that you're a bad leader of your own life, that you make bad decisions on your own, that you make compromising, potentially addictive, potentially world-changing in a bad way decisions when it's just you. Because if you're honest with yourself, okay? And again, you can pretend, you can fake me out, you can fake your spouse out, you can fake anybody else out you want. But you know your heart. You know your motives. And there's something in every single one of us. It's just not good. Jesus says, I came to save you from that. But you've got to base your life on it. Scripture says this. Fight the good fight of faith. Take hold of the eternal life to which you were called when you made your good confession in the presence of many witnesses. We are about to make good confessions in the presence of many witnesses with baptism. That's what it is, a baptism. To confess publicly what has happened to somebody internally, privately, a change, a new life. That's what's going to happen. But Paul writes this to a young pastor, and he says, listen, fight the good fight. It's a struggle. It's a challenge. Every day you get up and go, listen, am I going to put 1 foot in the world? Am I going to put 2 feet in the world? Am I going to put 1 foot with Jesus or 2 feet? Like, what am I going to do? Every single day, there is a battle that you wrestle with, that I wrestle with. And the battle is, what are we going to do with what we know? What are we going to do with that? Am I going to go closer to God? Am I going to go farther from God? Am I going to apply what I know? Or am I just going to sit back and I'm going to rent the faith and go, yeah, I know I probably shouldn't do it, but you know what? Nobody's perfect. You know, there was one perfect person. It's Jesus. And part of our struggle is, I just own the fact that part of my struggle is, it becomes really easy for me to look at other Christians and make the statement, no one's perfect. So you know what? Everybody's got their issues. Everybody's got their stuff. You know what? I don't really need to struggle with that. I don't really need to fight that fight. I don't really need to go there. You know what? Hey, listen, everybody's got their stuff. This is just my thing. Instead of looking at Jesus and going, no, but he was perfect. And that's who I need to follow. And that's my standard. And that's what I need to own. So today, we're going to baptize some people. It's going to be awesome. I want to encourage you to do one of two things, though. Maybe both. Number one is this. If this is your church, and again, I didn't talk about it too much because I've preached it before and I didn't want to repeat myself. My hope is we don't even have members. We've got owners. Own it. Own it. You're going to get an email tomorrow, and it's going to ask you to sign up for a service to serve. And again, I didn't talk about this. I figured you knew all this stuff, and I didn't want to feel manipulative or kind of whole deal. But own it. Own this church, serve, step up. We need you. It's going to be great fall. I can't wait for you to see what we're going to do. It's going to be awesome. But again, you're going to get an email. It's going to ask you to sign up for culture training if you haven't taken that or to serve in some capacity. I just want to encourage you to do that. It'll take you 15 seconds just to say yes and pick a service. The second thing is this. If you've got questions, and I hope you do, I don't care how long you've been a Christian, I believe all of us should have questions. I believe this whole process is a cyclical thing, that we always need to be questioning everything, always need to be going deeper, always need to be asking questions. So if you've got questions, we're going to be doing a class called Discover God. It's August 3rd, 10th, and 17th. It's going to be 3 weeks, and we're going to answer a lot of those questions. It's going to be a safe space for you to answer and ask anything that you want. No matter how old you are, no matter what your questions are, I'd rather sit with a bunch of people who are trying to figure it out than stand in front of a whole bunch of people who are just pretending. And so we're going to get an email tomorrow. You can sign up for that class, and I want to encourage you to step up and do that. As you leave today, we're going to give you a gift. We're all about gifts and little takeaways. We started today with Revelation chapter 3. Can we put that verse back up there by any chance? I'm sure we can. John's going to take care of it. He's amazing. But it was, be hot or cold, but don't be lukewarm. That's kind of the whole genesis of it. And so because you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I'm about to spit you out of my mouth. As you leave today, we're going to give you something. It's a small miniature bottle of Tabasco sauce, okay? It's because we hate you. No, I'm just kidding. No, this stuff is nasty. But, man, it'll take something that's bland. It'll take something that's lukewarm. It'll spice that puppy right up, won't it? It'll make it hot. My hope for you is that you put that somewhere in your world. I've had that actual one sitting on my desk for about 6-8 months now. That you would put it somewhere as a reminder to live your life with passion, to live your life as an owner, not a renter, not somebody who's just sitting back going, I may get to it, I may read something, I may study, no. You're going to do that no matter what. It's a decision you need to make. Am I going to insert Jesus into it and in turn be hot? In turn, have purpose, have focus, have the life that I want? Or am I going to keep going through the motions and be the religious moderate, guided much more by what the world says, by what other things say, by what my friends say, as opposed to what a God who loves you, who created you, has a plan for you, has a purpose for you, say? Are you going to be normal? Or are you going to be different? I hope, my prayer for you is wherever you're at, that you would live differently. Not just to be different, but so that you could be who God called you to be. You have a future. You have a life. This changes everything if you let it. It'll change the taste. It'll change the temperature. Jesus changes everything if you let it. Would you all stand with me? Today, we're going to do two things. I really do. I believe there's some people in here that you're renting your faith and you need to give your life to Christ for the first time ever. Like you've been renting, you've been checking it out, you've been kind of 1 foot in, like, I don't know, whatever. But you need to admit that, I'm a bad owner of my own life and I need to give it to God. You need to confess maybe for the first time that Jesus Christ is Lord. And if He's Lord, you can't be. If He's God, you can't be. And so I want us all to bow our heads. I want to give you a chance to make that transition, to let God not just add to you, but transform you, to change you from the inside, to give you something new, to be different, to be new. And so if you need to make that decision, I want you to pray after me. God, I make you my owner. I believe that you died for me, that you love me. The best really is yet to come. Forgive me of my sins. Help me make you Lord. Thank you, Jesus. Amen. For the rest of us, Heavenly Father, Lord, in a room like this, we're all over the place. We're all over renting and owning, and Lord, I pray that you would speak to each of us individually about what our next steps are, what we need to do, what we need to question, what we need to study, what we need to quit studying, what we need to take our eyes off of, and what we need to put our eyes on. Help us. Help us be owners of our faith. Help us know why we believe what we believe, and to be who you called us to be. We love you, Jesus. Amen. All right, so here's what's going to happen next. I'm going to walk around this whole deal. If you're being baptized today, or maybe you've never been baptized, maybe you just made a decision. I don't know where you're at, but you want to be baptized. You didn't come here planning to get baptized, but you just feel like that's your next step. We would love to talk to you about that. We got a t-shirt for you that we can give you and kind of walk through that. But we're going to sing, Jesus, I Come. And if you want to be baptized, whether you talk to us or not, or whether you just made a decision, I want you to follow us right back there, and we're going to go from there.